Walter Anderson, who came up with an awesome idea for starting a restaurant called White Castle. But let me tell you, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for him at the beginning. Oh no, he struggled big time. Walter wanted to serve yummy little burgers that people could eat super fast. They weren't like the huge burgers you get at fancy places today. Nope, they were small and easy to eat. But you know what? Back in 1921 when he started, not many folks were into fast food like we are now. Can you believe it? So, Walter had a hard time convincing people to try his little sliders. But he didn't give up. He was super determined and believed in his burgers like crazy. He worked day and night to make his restaurant a success. But even then, it was tough to get people to come to White Castle. But here's the cool part: Walter and his team came up with a smart idea to make sure people knew White Castle was the real deal. They built their restaurants in a unique way, with White Castle-like designs. It was eye-catching and made people curious to check it out. As time went on, they kept finding ways to stay popular. One genius move they made was to have their restaurants open 24/7. Can you imagine that? People could grab a burger anytime, day or night. It was a total hit, especially for those late-night munchies. They also kept their menu simple. They didn't try to do too many fancy things, just those delicious sliders, some fries, and drinks. This made it easy for them to keep the quality top-notch and the prices low. People loved it. And guess what? Word started to spread about these awesome little burgers, and more folks showed up at White Castle. It became a big hit, and they kept expanding to new places. Now, fast forward to today. White Castle is still around and kicking. They've had to keep up with the times and have new items on their menu, but they never forgot their roots. They still serve those classic sliders that made them famous. They've also embraced social media and technology to stay popular with us young folks. They have cool Instagram and Snapchat filters, and they're always doing fun challenges online. When Walter first came up with the idea of serving these little sliders, people thought he was crazy. Fast food wasn't a thing back then, and everyone was used to sitting down at fancy restaurants for their meals. Can you imagine going to a high-end restaurant just for a burger now? Sounds weird, right? But Walter believed in his vision and knew he had something special. He faced a lot of rejection from investors and banks when he tried to get funding for his restaurant. It was really tough for him to get started, but he didn't let that get him down. He decided to take matters into his own hands and put all his savings into opening the first White Castle restaurant in Wichita, Kansas. At first, things were slow. People didn't know what to make of these tiny burgers, and the restaurant wasn't making much money. Walter had to work long hours and even sleep in the restaurant, sometimes to keep things going. But he didn't give up. He believed in his sliders and knew that if people just tried them, they would love them. To attract customers, Walter and his team came up with a brilliant idea. They offered the sliders for just 5 cents each. Can you believe it? They were so cheap and people couldn't resist giving them a try. And you know what? Once people tasted those delicious little burgers, they were hooked. But Walter didn't stop there. He wanted to make sure that every slider that came out of his kitchen was perfect. So, he invented this cool thing called the safety meat grinder. It might sound weird, but it was a machine that made sure the meat was ground up safely and hygienically. This way, he could guarantee that every slider was safe and tasty. As time went on, White Castle faced new challenges. More fast food places started popping up, and competition got tough. But Walter was always looking for ways to stay ahead of the game. He was the first to sell hamburgers in boxes, so people could take them home. He even created the Craver Nation to build a loyal following of White Castle fans. And remember how I mentioned they stayed open 24/7? Well, that decision made them a favorite spot for late-night eats. Imagine coming back from a party at 2 a.m. and knowing you could grab some sliders to satisfy your hunger. White Castle has been through ups and downs, but they never forgot their roots. They kept their menu simple, always focusing on those delicious sliders that started it all. They also expanded to different parts of the country, making sure everyone could get a taste of those tiny wonders. In this day and age, they knew they had to adapt too. They embraced social media and started engaging with their fans online. They even started offering vegetarian sliders for those who wanted a meat-free option. As White Castle gained popularity, Walter faced a new challenge: making sure every restaurant served the same delicious sliders with the same top-notch quality. He came up with a genius idea to maintain consistency. He used a strict set of guidelines called the White Castle system for preparing the burgers. This meant that no matter which White Castle you went to, you knew you'd get that mouth-watering taste every time. But you know what's even cooler? Walter was an early pioneer of the modern fast food concept. He knew that to keep people coming back, he had to make their experience fast and convenient. So, he set up the restaurants to have an open kitchen design, where customers could see their burgers being cooked right in front of them. It was like a behind-the-scenes sneak peek, and people loved it. White Castle was also one of the first restaurants to have its own dedicated supply chain. They built their own meat processing plants to ensure they had full control over the quality of the beef used in their sliders. This commitment to quality set them apart from other fast food joints, and customers appreciated knowing they were getting the best. As time passed, White Castle became an iconic part of American culture. It even made appearances in popular movies and TV shows, making it a symbol of the classic American burger joint. But staying popular in this day and age meant facing new challenges. With more people becoming health conscious, White Castle knew they had to adapt their menu. So, they introduced healthier options, like grilled chicken sliders and salads, alongside their beloved classics. They also became eco-friendly by using sustainable packaging and reducing waste. They knew that being environmentally responsible was essential to connect with the younger generation who cared about the planet. Another smart move they made was listening to their customers and engaging with them on social media. They ran fun polls, asked for feedback, and even introduced limited edition sliders based on fan requests. It made people feel involved and excited about the brand. White Castle also collaborated with other cool brands and artists, making them even more hip and appealing to young folks. From trendy streetwear collections to partnering with famous musicians, they showed they were not just a burger joint, but a part of pop culture. And let's not forget the power of nostalgia. They played on the sentimental feelings people had for their childhood memories of eating sliders with family and friends. They used throwback ads and designs, bringing back that vintage charm that resonated with folks of all ages. So, that's the story of how White Castle, with the brilliant ideas of its founder Walter Anderson, and the dedication of its team, not only survived but thrived over the years. They stayed true to their values while embracing change and innovation. From the early days of struggle to becoming a cultural icon, White Castle's journey is truly inspiring.